Good afternoon, everyone. In this case, I will be referring to how reproductive rights can be used to formulate social policies both on historical and current grounds. These rights are the core of the realization of gender equality as well as empowering women. Sadly, there have been great differences around the world as far as whether reproductive healthy care is available. These rights being protected or then it also impacts big things like social stuff, getting sick and feeling better, being treated justly because you are a girl or a boy. We'll use the document in these cases as an instance of something the 1965 legal record called the Griswold vs. Connected Car. This record is a main one thing that's made the right to personal privacy as a starting idea of reproduction in society. By examining this text, we see how the state's role in controlling reproductive decisions was legally challenged. The 20th century, however, embraced a lot of change with social and political movement demanding change. Abortion legalization was a milestone for freedom of reproduction, but reproductive rights struggle keep meeting endless problem. Movements still ask rights to get access and equal treatment now. However, a critical reflection on this archive review who was excluded. The document focused on married couple, effectively silenced the voices of unmarried individuals and marginalized women of color, whose reproductive struggles, such as fighting against forced sterilization, are absent from this specific legal narrative. They show that historical record often favor those in power by focusing only on married couple. The Griswold ruling basically ignored the rights of anyone who didn't fit that traditional mold. In most countries, abortion remains a controversial legal issue with the ethic involved in the case of issue of healthy autonomy and safeguarding of life. Laws usually have an impact on cultural and religion belief, which form the conflict between the individual choices and the government. Furthermore, the legal struggle regarding reproductive freedom have not concluded, and some countries want to limit the access to reproductive health. One of the most important things that should be done is to make sure that the rights to reproductive services is not only legalized but made available to the needy. Looking at this achieved, we need to think about what it means ethically to research history. Responsibility implies that those records were usually written with bias by the people periods during which they exist. Be careful when dealing with ethics was as not using all this data to say why it was okay for our exclusionary policies. It is there showing there is a gap in current care we can work toward filling. The difference among various nations and regions when it comes to being able to assess reproduction medical care is very large. On the contrary, certain places offer their people full access to all sorts of reproductive health care service, but in some other places, reproduction choices are extremely limited or even impossible to have. The reproductive rights idea has got a lot tied up with the gender equality and having one over through free. This should be part of forming the rules of how everyone gets along together in society. The recent trends, which include a campaign in favor of reproductive justice and security, abortion rights have become more popular throughout the world. The link between this 1965 achieved and today's global issue is clear. The disparity in stats mentioned in current study mirror the historical struggle for autonomy found in the Griswold field. As an archival resource, it helped me understand why there are arguments about privacy and the restriction imposed by the government even when it comes to today's society. Future reform need to focus more on protecting and making sure that there is access to reproductive healthy care for anyone to be able to decide what they want done with their own body.